Hey, welcome to Story Time with Will. I'm Will Sarris. Tonight we're going to do a couple of shorter stories from a book called Richard Scarry's The Animals' Merry Christmas. The Singing Christmas Tree. A little deer came skipping merrily home through the snowy woods. His eyes were still shining from the wonderful things he had seen. His heart felt as light as a snowflake, and as warm as he always felt close to his mother's side. "Oh, Mother," he cried, "I went to the town and peeped in the window of the house. There was a tree inside, glittering and shining, with stars caught in its branches, red and green ones, blue and white, and it was all hung with bright balls that sparkled the light all over the room." The mother deer nodded her head slowly. Her eyes shone too. "That was a Christmas tree," she said softly. "At Christmas time, people deck their trees with lights and toys and shining things." "Christmas tree?" whispered the little deer. "Oh, Mother, I want a Christmas tree too, with lights." The mother deer pawed the snowy ground thoughtfully. Oh, how much she wanted a tree for her baby. She thought, and at last an idea came to her. "Follow me," she said. She took her baby farther into the woods and showed him a small green tree in a little clearing. "We'll put berries on the branches," said the mother deer. "We'll put tasty shoots on them and tender roots." The little deer helped. He worked busily. But when the tree was decorated, it was not bright and shining like the tree in town. "Never mind," said the mother deer. "Wait until morning. Then we'll come to look at it again." Soon the baby deer was back home, tucked closely to his mother's side. Soon he was asleep in the dark, snow-clad woods. And just as the sun came up, his mother awakened him. Deep into the woods they went on their quiet feet. Close to the clearing they stopped and peeped in, and the little deer's eyes grew wide. Icicles hung from his Christmas tree, shining with sunrise. Snowflakes sparkled on it in red and blue and green, and on all the branches were dozens of bright singing birds eating the berries and roots and shoots. "Merry Christmas," they sang on that early Christmas morning. "Merry Christmas," they chattered between bites. The little deer nuzzled his nose in his mother's neck. "It's a beautiful tree," he whispered, "much more beautiful than the tree in town." And still the birds sang, and the mother deer smiled happily. And one by one the other animals came through the woods to look at the little deer's wonderful singing Christmas tree. Mr. Hedgehog's Christmas Present. It was Christmas time in London town. Arm in arm, the Hedgehog family hurried through the snowy twilight. London town was even more wonderful than Mr. Hedgehog had imagined. The stores were a miracle of shining lights and splendid sights. Even the mice went about with their presents for their friends and Merry Christmas on their lips. "I should like to get a present for Mrs. Hedgehog," said Mr. Hedgehog to himself. What should it be? Not a fur coat. Mrs. Hedgehog had one that suited her perfectly. Not a diamond tiara. That would be too heavy for her head. Might make it ache. Surely not a bottle of perfume. Hedgehogs like the smell of fern and hawthorn in the woods. Suddenly, something lovely caught Mr. Hedgehog's eye. A bright red apple lay in the clean snow near the curb, lost and forgotten. Mr. Hedgehog picked it up and brushed off the snow. He polished it with his mittens. He presented it to his wife and said, "Merry Christmas, my dear." Mrs. Hedgehog kissed him. "I'll make us a big, sweet, warm apple dumpling." The little hedgehogs, one and all, smacked their lips and shouted, "Merry Christmas," again and again. And arm in arm, the hedgehog family hurried home to their cozy burrow, which soon smelled excitingly of apple and spice and crisp pastry browning, the very merriest kind of Christmas smell. The Snowshoe Rabbits. 5 happy rabbits sat close to the fireplace in their snug little house. One was the mother rabbit, one was the daddy rabbit, and 3 were young rabbits who had never seen Christmas. "First of all, there will be the tree," said the mother rabbit. "Grandma always has a Christmas tree. It will be dressed with popcorn and berries and lighted with candles, and on it there will be presents for 3 good little rabbits." The little rabbit's eyes shone just as if the candles were lighted right then. "And of course your grandpa will play his rabbit piano," added the daddy rabbit. "He'll play Jingle Bells and Deck the Halls and the First Noel." Now the little rabbits began to hum. They knew all those songs. They knew all about Christmas at Grandma's. So they sang till their ears waggled. Then one little rabbit hopped up. He was a fat little rabbit, licking his lips. "After that comes Christmas dinner," he said. "A big roast carrot basted with sugar, mashed turnips with butter, and cranberries red and shining. And for dessert, a round pudding all lighted up with holly on top." That fat little rabbit flopped back in his chair. "I can hardly wait for tomorrow," he whispered. "I can hardly wait to go to Grandma's." The other little rabbits nodded, and the mother rabbit smiled. "We'll go early in the morning," said the daddy rabbit, looking at his watch. "And right now, it's time good little rabbits were in bed." In the whisk of a whisker, all three little rabbits were in their beds and sound asleep. They were dreaming of shining candles, and wonderful presents, and beautiful smells, and a glossy tree, and a sprinkling of snow. But when they hopped out of bed in the morning and looked out the window, there was no sprinkling of snow. Sprinkling indeed. It had snowed all through the night. Snow covered the hills and the long grass and all the rabbit paths. It was heaped halfway up to the house, deeper than boots, deeper than leggings, deeper than the three little rabbits themselves. "It's too deep," whispered the fat little rabbit. "We'll never be able to go to Grandma's now," said his brother. And the little girl rabbit pulled her apron over her head to hide her tears. By and by, the three little rabbits crept downstairs. Sorry little rabbits they were, full of gulps and sighs and tears that almost spilled over. Their mother and daddy didn't seem sad at all. They talked happily all through breakfast, just as if nothing had happened. After breakfast, their daddy hurried up to the attic. Back he came, smiling and proud, with strange-looking things under his arm. They looked like tennis rackets. But who plays tennis in the deep snow? Nobody. "What are they?" asked the fat little rabbit at last. "Snowshoes," laughed the daddy rabbit. "They're for walking right on top of deep snow." None of the little rabbits waited to hear any more. They scrambled into their warmest clothes. They gathered up all the exciting secret present packages they had made. And before very long, out into the crisp white snow went the whole rabbit family. Across the deep snow they tramped in those wonderful snowshoes. They made big scuffy tracks from their house, straight toward their grandma's house. And as they went, they sang, "Snowshoe rabbits in the snow, off to Grandma's house we go. Holly pudding, popcorn toys, shining candles, lots of noise. Off to Grandma's house we go, sing for Christmas, sing for snow." The Naughty Little Reindeer. 8 little reindeer stood side by side in their cozy barn eating their supper. "Got to eat a lot," said Dasher and Dancer. "So we can go fast," agreed Vixen. "All around the world we'll go," cried Comet and Cupid. And Donder and Blitzen sang a sort of song, "Through the snow bring toys to the good girls and boys." But Prancer shook his head in the naughtiest way. "Not me," he said. "I'm not going this year." The other reindeer stopped eating. "Not going?" they cried. "Nope," said Prancer. "Tired of going. This year I'll stay right here and wait for Santa Claus to come to me." Then he hopped into bed and pulled the quilt over his head. And just as he did, Santa Claus came into the barn. He whistled merrily to himself as he piled his sleigh full of wonderful toys. But when he saw only 7 reindeer ready to go, he looked worried. "Why, where's Prancer?" he asked. 7 little reindeer pointed to Prancer's bed. The quilt moved uneasily, and Prancer peeped out. "Not going," he said. "Going to stay in bed." The other reindeer held their breath. They thought Santa Claus might be mad. Perhaps Prancer did too. "I'm getting a cold," said that naughty little reindeer. "Or maybe measles. Maybe both together." That was a whopper. But Santa was not mad. He never had been mad, and he wasn't mad then. He just winked at his other reindeer and harnessed them to his sleigh. Out of the barn they dashed into the snowy night. Prancer listened to the sleigh bells. They sounded rather slow, and not nearly so merry as on other Christmas Eves when he had gone too. And Santa's voice blew back with the wind. "Now, Dasher, now, Dancer," he called. "On Vixen and Comet, on Cupid, on Donder and Blitzen." For a moment, Prancer felt quite lonesome. He missed having his name called. "I don't care," he told himself. "I'm tired, and it's cold outside. Anyway, I've carried enough toys. It's time some presents were brought to me." With that, he curled up, wondering what Santa Claus would bring to him. He thought of horns and drums and electric trains that go round and round. He thought of a new red blanket with his name on it. He thought of apples and sugar. Oh, how Prancer hoped Santa Claus would hurry up and come back very soon. "But he can't hurry with only 7 reindeer instead of 8, thought the little reindeer. "Maybe he won't get all around the world without me to help. Maybe he won't get to all the good children's houses." And when Prancer said good, he remembered that Santa Claus never comes to anyone who is naughty. "Oh, me," Prancer cried. "I was good all year, and now I've spoiled everything on Christmas Eve." Out of bed he jumped, kicking his quilt up in the air. "Maybe I can still catch up," he cried. Out of the barn he streaked, and across the crisp white snow. He skimmed over the housetops faster and faster. "Faster," he told himself. "Faster, faster." Never had Prancer gone so fast. And at last, quite out of breath, the little reindeer caught up with Santa's sleigh. It was up on a housetop, and Santa himself was disappearing down the chimney. "Thought I'd never catch up," panted Prancer, trotting toward his friends. "Shucks," said Comet. "We couldn't go very fast without 8. "And my harness kept twisting because you were missing," added Vixen. "Well, I'm not missing now," said Prancer, slipping into his place. And when Santa Claus came back, away went that sleigh faster than ever before. All around the world it went, with the sleigh bells jingling wildly. Before long, the last stocking was filled, and the last toy was placed under the last shining tree. Then 8 tired little reindeer hurried home. They pawed the snow impatiently while Santa Claus opened the barn doors. They yawned, and they blinked in the sleepiest kind of way. But once the doors were flung open, the reindeer weren't one bit sleepy anymore, because right in the middle of the barn stood a fat Christmas tree all trimmed and lighted, and under it were new red blankets and new green feed bags, and bouquets of crisp carrots and baskets of red apples, and little boxes of sparkling sugar cubes. 7 little reindeer pranced into the barn with shining eyes, but Prancer stood outside, hanging his head. "I guess there's only 7 of everything, sir," he whispered to Santa Claus. "I was pretty bad, and I wasn't getting a cold at all." Santa Claus chuckled and patted Prancer's head. "I know," he said, "and I knew you'd change your mind about not going. That's why I told Mrs. Santa Claus to fix 8 of everything for my 8 good little reindeer." Now Prancer whisked his tail and tossed his head proudly. Into the barn he pranced, and sure enough, there were his presents waiting under the tree. He tried on his feed bag. He nuzzled his new blanket, and ate 4 lumps of sugar in 1, 2, 3, 4. There never was a happier reindeer than that little Prancer. And what made him happiest of all was being sure that Santa Claus understands about everything, just as people have always said he does. I enjoy reading those every Christmas season to my kids, so I'm glad you could join me. Listen, if you liked that video, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We've got a lot of stories on here, a bunch of Christmas stories, and we've got more coming on the way. And until next time, please stay safe, stay healthy, and have a very Merry Christmas.